Hello, and welcome to our webcast. I'm Amy Pendergrass with Moss Adams, and I'm going to get us started for today's session, How to Attract and Retain Construction Industry Talent. Before we begin, I'm going to play a brief video.
Welcome, and thanks for joining us. We're pleased to present another in our ongoing series of continuing professional education webcasts to help companies and individuals conquer challenges as they plan for what's next. Our presentation will start in a few moments. Before we begin, here are a few things to keep in mind. You can customize how you both view our presentation and interact with the presenter. For better viewing, close all other applications and turn up your speaker volume. You can also adjust window size and placement or enter full screen mode using the controls at the top of the window or dragging the bottom right-hand corner to resize. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a series of icons, each relating to a different aspect of our session. You can download the group attendance sheet and a PDF copy of today's slides from the slide deck and handouts widget to the right of the slide view. You can ask our presenter questions during the webcast by typing a question in the Q&A window below the slide view and clicking Submit. We'll do our best to answer all questions during the presentation or follow up via email. If you experience technical difficulty during today's presentation, refresh your browser by hitting the F5 key. Today's session will offer you 1 CPE credit. To receive credit, you must meet the requirements as specified by the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy. You must attend at least 50 minutes of the session and respond to at least 75% of the polling questions, which we'll ask throughout today's presentation. To respond to a poll, click the button next to your answer. We'll track your progress and alert you when you've earned CPE credit. You can then click the certificate icon in the CPE Progress widget to open a PDF file that you can save to your computer. Don't worry if you can't download your PDF certificate today. We'll email a copy to you in 2 weeks. If you're attending this webcast in a group, you must complete our attendance sheet to receive CPE credit. The attendance sheet is available in the slide deck and handouts widget. Please have all group members sign it and send only 1 sheet per group. Also note that CPE credit can be awarded only to participants registered as themselves and isn't available to participants who view the on-demand version. As a reminder, the presentation you're about to see isn't legal, investment, or accounting advice. We encourage you to seek the counsel of a professional service provider to apply this content to your specific circumstances.
All right, and now I would like to turn the floor over to today's moderator, Diane Kocer, Executive Director at Agc Education Foundation. Diane?
Thank you, Amy. And welcome, everyone, and thank you particularly to Moss Adams for inviting us to discuss this important topic. We welcome everyone from across the country, and we're inviting you to learn about the work that we're doing here in Washington State in hopes that you may be inspired to engage in advanced programs in your state. The Agc Education Foundation is a nonprofit organization that was created 42 years ago. And our sole mission is to develop and promote construction careers. We've created many programs over the years. We have lots of programs that we could share with you to attract the next generation of workers. And we also work with many general contractors to learn strategies about employee retention. But today we put together a great panel that includes a general contractor, an expert in workforce development in the state school system, and 2 educators. Our discussion includes all construction positions, whether that's field, skilled workers, management, legal, marketing. When we talk about the construction workforce, we're talking about everyone. So specifically attracting a construction workforce, we believe that we must not only start working with students in high school or even earlier, but that the approach must also be strategic and comprehensive, as opposed to, let's say, a one-time event or a career fair. It should be a program that allows students to earn high school credit equivalencies while staying in construction courses. So let's imagine for a minute if we've got a student in a construction class and they can earn an English language arts credit by working on a bid, or they can do a pull planning exercise that requires a lot of writing, and then they have to present it to their classmates. This is a program called Core Plus Construction. It will be the main program we talk about today. For retention, we believe that companies that encourage and provide employees in their construction community to take volunteer and leadership roles, that they will foster pride in their own companies. And we believe that that workforce development helps that. We'll also conclude this, our presentation today to give you more thoughts about retention. So at this point, before we introduce our panelists, I believe, Amy, you've got the first polling question.
Yes, thank you, Diane. So our first polling question is, what positions at your current organization? A, owner, B, C-suite executive, C, middle management, D, human resources, or E, other. And we will give you a few moments to respond. To respond, you need to click the button next to the answer you choose and hit submit. And if you cannot see the submit button, just enlarge the slide area. And then also, while everyone's responding, I do want to let you know that we want this to be more of an interactive discussion. So please submit questions for the panel using the Q&A window that's in your console. We'll leave this up for another 5 seconds here. All right, here are the results.
Great, looks like a cross-representation. So that's perfect for our discussion today. So let's move forward now and introduce our panelists. So Amy, I think you've got another slide here for the panelists. There we go. So let's start with Jeff Tobin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Tobin. I'm the Chief Operating Officer with Schuchart Corporation. We are a commercial general contractor, largely in the Puget Sound area, but we also work in Utah, Northern Oregon, and Southern California. Thanks for having me.
Sarah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Patterson. I'm the current Workforce Development Director at the Agc Education Foundation of Washington. Prior to that, I spent some time in the construction industry as a welder and a building inspector, and then I worked for the State Department of Education here in Washington State.
Thank you, Sarah. Wes.
Morning, everybody. My name is Wes Allen. I'm the director at Sno-Isle Tech Skill Center, which is a skill center that services Snohomish County and South Island counties in beautiful Washington State. Really excited to be here today and really excited to tell you about all the amazing things we do for students in the Core Plus area.
Thanks, Wes. Jen?
Hi, welcome. I'm Jen Stutz. I teach students in the construction trades program at Sno-Isle Tech that Wes was just sharing with you. My students are juniors and seniors in high school.
Thank you, Jen, and welcome, panelists, and thank you for your time today. So we're going to start off with Jeff. And Jeff, can you set the stage for our conversation and tell us about your journey to becoming a COO?
Sure. As a student growing up, I was one of those kids that was not completely engaged in school unless it was something I was that I was excited about. So through junior high and high school, I spent as much time as humanly possible in shop classes, engineering classes, and all those things that intrigued me, but at no time did anybody really tell me that I could make a career out of this. At the same time, when I was about 15 years old, my neighbor was a residential contractor. I was a big kid, and he knew I could move stuff around, so he hired me as a grunt on his job sites. And that was really my first introduction into the construction world. So I spent a few years and summers working as a laborer on residential job sites. And from there, I got into the trades, specifically with a company that some of you may remember, Pacific Construction Systems. They were a framing and drywall outfit that was really big around here. And so I worked there. Really, it was just something to do, earn some money, use the skills that I was good at, and but really had no further thoughts beyond that. As far as college, as I was moving my way to college, my counselors never really had any conversations with me other than, you don't want to do construction. You can't make a career out of this. And it was really, they kind of turned me off to the whole idea. So I went into college, and I was one of those kids that literally went to school to play sports. So thankfully it got me in, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. And so I didn't even do a CM program in college. I did what I needed to do to stay eligible, got a degree, and got out. right when I got out of school, I went right back to PCS and went into the apprenticeship program for framing and drywall. And through that, my transition really started to change there. I worked in the field for 5-6 years and was hired on as a building engineer because I didn't want to work outside anymore. Started my my work there, and during that time, they discovered that I actually knew how to read a set of plans. And the woman I was working for sent me back to school at UW to get at the time, it was kind of a hybrid CM facility certificate. I completed that, and then from there made moves through the facilities management world, building operations, and my career kind of ping-ponged around between the owner side and subcontracting. And over the years, as I moved from company to company, I landed where I was at here. And I think one of the key takeaways here that will kind of come up through this whole program is the educators that I was connecting with really did their best to steer me from this trade. And I know now that, holy cow, this is a very lucrative career, whether it's field or office, and incredibly diverse. So you're going to hear a lot more about the things that we've done here in Washington to set up to really reach out to kids like me. And I'm not a unique story. I am just a case study on a problem that this industry has had for decades. And what you're going to hear coming up is how we've worked to solve that problem.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, you nailed it. You're the kid we're talking about. So next, I would like to ask Sarah. So Sarah, can you tell our audience why we need a strategic approach to attracting kids to construction? And this is a two-part question. So you're going to talk about why we needed to do something like this. And then can you explain Core Plus construction, which I know is difficult to do in less than in a short time because it's quite a comprehensive program, but I know you're up for the task. Go for it, Sarah.
Well, thank you, Diane. So one of the reasons that we're really encouraging you to take a more strategic approach beyond that single career fair or being a guest speaker for a single day is recognizing that most students are only having to take a single credit of career and technical education in their graduation pathway. And for those students who are able to take more than one credit of career and technical education, kind of like Jeff did, and hang out in shop class, we want to make sure that they're really getting a comprehensive view of the construction industry as opposed to just a schedule filler, if you will, with no one really giving them advice or feedback on where this could take you and the vast array of construction careers available beyond the skilled trades, but certainly, with a lot of respect for the skilled trades. So one of the things that we want to do within the Core Plus program was how could we build a systemic program that would go beyond just that single touch point with industry to students of that career fair or that guest speaker. And a large part of that was building a scholastic program that would allow students to take up to 4 years of quote unquote shop class that would also offer them their career and technical education credit in addition to other graduation credits such as math, science, or English language arts. That's just one side of the Core Plus program. The other side is the support for educators like Jen. She's one of our superstar educators. She's easy to support because she's already doing a great job. But being able to come in and reinforce for her students exactly what she's teaching and show them how that parlays into a career. And then additionally, really working to engage with the counselor corps in our schools because they are the gatekeepers for so many of our students as far as advising them on their next steps. So engaging them and helping them better understand and see the prospects in the construction industry is another piece of that Core Plus construction. So it's a holistic approach to connecting industry to education. So we get past those one-offs and really start to integrate our community, our industry, into the education system in a meaningful way.
Thank you, Sarah. And can you touch a little bit on the actual, it's a program of, it's 1,080 hours.
Sure.
In a real brief moment. Yeah.
Yeah, very quickly. It is 1,080 hours of curriculum developed for use in either a traditional school setting or a skill center. And Jen's going to talk a little bit more about a skill center setting. But it allows a student to engage in the 9th grade all the way through graduate. So 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade every year, building upon each other, exploring all of the different construction careers through hands-on comprehensive learning. So it's definitely still a shop class. They're building, they're learning, they're making, they're doing, but they're also getting exposed to a whole host of career options and opportunities. So that if that student says, you know, I like being in here, I like the environment, but I'm not big into the building. Hey, let's talk about estimating. Let's talk about construction management. Let's talk about the accounting side of the house. All of those other careers that we typically don't really offer students introduction to. It also allows for students to engage at different levels. You know, maybe they recognize this wasn't really my thing, and that's okay too, because that's as much part of it as helping students to recognize this is definitely my thing. We want to help them in all aspects of choosing the right path as they leave their high schools.
Perfect. And before we're going to go to Amy in just a second, a polling question, but I just wanted to add too, that the most important part that does tie to retention is that this is industry driven. We can look here and see that there's educators, I'm representing a trade association, but really all of this was driven by industry and also will be supported by industry. So that's really, really key. Thanks, Sarah. Perfect summary in that short time. So Amy, I'm gonna turn it over to you for our second polling question.
All right, thank you, Diane. The second polling question, do you struggle to attract talent at your organization? A, yes, B, no, or C, I don't know. And just as a reminder, if you would like to receive CPE for today's webcast, you will need to respond to at least 3 of the 4 polling questions that we pull up throughout the presentation. And I do see some responses coming in through the Q&A window. You will need to make sure that you submit it on the slide in order to get the CPE credit. All right, this was a pretty quick one. Here are the results.
What a shock that is. And I think that's why we're here today. So I'm not going to really be serious here, but do you struggle to attract? And the answer is no. Wow, I would really like to know where that is. But yes, clearly it's hard to find talent right now. So thank you for your responses. So we are going to get to our educators, but right before we do that, I want to circle back to Jeff and ask Jeff if he thinks an industry-driven program with a huge need for volunteers, such as Core Plus Construction, can also help with employee retention. Follow up on that a little bit.
All right, thanks, Dan. So 72% of you have noted that there is effectively a manpower problem. 5-6 years ago, there was a local article that was written that noted that for every person in the industry locally of retirement age, every 5, there's only 1 backfilling those spots. Obviously, that points to a problem. And then the troubles that we all have as of late, battling COVID and everybody rethinking their careers, it only compounds the problem. That on top of the things that I mentioned earlier, traditionally, many counseling offices do not even speak about construction in a very positive light. So to the point of, do we think that this can create retention within our own companies? Absolutely. Engagement is the key here, right? So a lot of what we're talking about today is actually actively engaging with the communities that you work in. There is major untapped resources in schools and people that just don't know what they want to do. They may have come out of college, but how does that really do anything for us as somebody running a company? What does that do for our internal people? What we've done, and many of the folks on the phone here and in our industry, we engage our own employees to go out to skill centers and CTU programs with the high schools and engage in after school programs to really get out there early and touch those, that sounds a little weird the way I'll say it, reach out to those kids early to make sure that they know that there is a very diverse career. And what it does for our employees, it really empowers them. I mean, find me a construction person that doesn't like to talk about what they do. So we're going to send those folks out who are really jazzed and passionate about what they're doing to spread the good message that we have a very diverse industry. Sarah kind of noted that. We've got the field side, we've got the professional, the operational side, we've got the administrative side, many jobs. But by empowering our own employees to reach out and engage with those students, it kind of brings the passion back to them. They get to speak to young minds and engage them, but it really gets them excited about their own work again. And when we provide those opportunities to lead an effort, it really helps them feel like we appreciate the work that they are doing and want them to go spread the good word. And I can tell you from at least the efforts that we've been doing over the last 10 years within Schuchart, we have a number of people that do engage and they love it. And I think it's one of the things that really endears them to our company, that we truly believe in our engagement and actively reach out. You can't wish this stuff done. And by empowering our folks to engage, they jump in and they identify these kids, and whether they go through the Core Plus program or to a skills center, trade school, or whatever, we're getting ahead of them early to help fill our pipeline. I hope that answered it, Diane.
That sure did. That was awesome. Thank you. So now we're part of the panel with, we're not neglecting you. You're the most important, and that's the educators. And yes, Wes and Jen. First, we have to say thank you as educators for the last 2 years of all the work you've done. I think the entire country is saluting you, so nice job. So Wes, can you give us an administrator's point of view about the Core Plus construction program at your skill center?
Oh, happy to do that. And thank you, Diane, for that. The props. It's been a long 2 years, and we're closer now than we have been in quite a while, and very happy about that at Sno-Isle Tech. We're a little bit different. Sarah described, Skill Center. We can actually offer students all 1,080 hours of instruction that Core Plus offers to students. And the great thing that we do as a skill center is that we're able to expose them, again, like Jack said, bad word maybe, but we're able to expose them to all the different aspects of the construction trades field. Jen isn't just teaching framing or just teaching how to do roofing or just talking architecture. She's showing them a cross section. And really what the Core Plus framework does is it gives her a framework structure to be able to make sure that she's covering all those different areas and the students are getting that well-balanced look at every piece. And like Jeff said earlier, the powerful part is when she's able to bring folks in like Jeff from industry to be able to talk to all those different opportunities that come up. As a skill center for us, we're taking the passion, like Jeff was talking about, that students have and letting them know all the different opportunities that they can do within that one field of area. And the Core Plus curriculum, what that does for us is gives us those equivalency credits that Sarah was mentioning in math, English, and science. So it's not a barrier for a student that may not be an academic scholar, or maybe had some struggles in traditional comprehensive high school classes, and now can see the success. And my personal mantra going forward is I think it devalues it when we call them hands-on learning classes. They're application learning classes, meaning you have to have a skill set, and now you're taking that skill set from those core academic areas and building upon it and showing an employer like Jeff that I know how to apply these math and science and English skills to be effective in the workplace. And so I think that shift that we're making within the career and technical education field and in our industry is what's going to make the change in the counselor's office and in the comprehensive high schools to get those students that we need.
That's great. Thank you, Wes. So Jen, you are in the classroom with our future workforce. Thank you. How has this program changed the way you teach your construction class?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for that Core Plus partnership. One way that it's changed my approach and my teaching is a more deliberate approach, more deliberate with those equivalency, we called it, but bringing in those academics in a more deliberate way. Things I used to say were things like sneaky math. I think most of us in the screen would agree that math is ever present in our industry, whether you're doing physical layout as a tradesperson, or maybe you're on the estimating side of things. Math is ever present. But it was something that I would sneak into those lessons, and students might realize it later, oh, I do know that construction math, but that wasn't necessarily acknowledged in the moment. But now I really call that to their attention. One, because they are officially working towards those equivalencies. But two, it's pretty empowering to a student to say, wait a minute, I am successful at math. I just read building code. I can read technical writing. So some of those skills are empowering to the students as well. One more quick benefit I think to share is that the network that Core Plus can provide from the industry side. So I'm not just relying on my experience, but I have the ability to rely on industry experience from many of the partners, business partners through Core Plus that represents a really wide and diverse industry, whether that be commercial or residential or industrial projects, and then all the many facets of those projects, whether that be specialties within it.
Great, thanks. And Wes, have you seen an increase in enrollment from your standpoint?
Definitely have, partially because Jen is an amazing teacher. But then the other part of it is that students are seeing students are identifying that, like Jeff said, this is a viable pathway to go forward and find that post-high school experience. Again, whether it's going to a post-secondary school or it's going directly into the workforce and then maybe getting schooling once you find out where you fit within the industry. They're seeing it very, very evidently here in the greater Puget Sound area. And the part that we're actually playing is there actually is more need than we can fill. And so there's other programs at other skill centers and then other comprehensive high schools that are helping us meet the needs of students. But again, mostly because of Jen, but the other part is students see the need and understand this is a viable option, like Jeff said earlier, to have live a very good life in the Puget Sound, being in this industry.
And although today we're talking primarily about Core Plus as we begin this presentation, we do have lots of programs. And when we talk about strategic, what I want to remind our audience is that this Core Plus construction program is the overarching program that we feed all of our other workforce development programs through. So for example, we may have 5 other programs, but we are going to focus now on those schools and skill centers that actually offer Core Plus construction. So we see it as bigger than just saying, hey, this is just a Core Plus construction program. There's lots of things. So even if you're not in Washington State, you can implement programs too, and that can result in great things such as Core Plus construction. But we just want to focus on the strategy behind it, and it's bigger than just a one-off. So I think we've addressed that. So Amy, at this point, I think you want another polling question.
All right. So our third polling question, which positions do you find most difficult to hire? A, field positions, B, technical management positions, C, executive positions, D, finance and administration, or E, I don't know. And then also, I know some of you are wondering if this recording will be available for you to share with your team. And the answer is yes. We will be sending it out via email tomorrow to all attendees.
And Amy, we did have a question about if we have websites, and we do have 2 websites, and we'll make sure to get those addresses to you so that you can send that out too.
All right, here are the results.
No shock.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, no shock. That is exactly what we're seeing. It is a little surprising to me that finance and the finance positions are difficult too. So good feedback. Okay, so I'm going to circle back right now to Jen. And Jen, can you discuss, because this right before we went to the polling, we were talking about other programs. And can you discuss a little bit about the Educator Externship? And you participated in that, and this is where we bring in teachers to come and have a 4 to 5 day immersive experience with the construction industry. Can you touch on that a little bit, please?
You bet. It was a great experience this last summer. It was during the week long. We did it essentially during all of your business time. My first response, and as I think back on it, was just that it was energizing. And I think maybe to many of you that are in the screen, we saw that polling question a bit ago, are probably not spending your entire day on an active job site necessarily, but that energy that you get when you get to go be present on an active job site, for me was exciting to sort of fill up that tank of energy to then start a new school year. So that's kind of an intangible piece to it. Another piece that was getting to connect with other construction teachers, because I am the only construction teacher here at our skill center. Our other programs are things like diesel mechanics or veterinary assisting. So I don't have a team, at least not a team of adults. I have a great team of students. And then another true positive throughout the week was as I got to experience, so we got to go out on active job sites. So a few healthcare, a commercial project, a residential development that was under multiple phases of construction, as well as some heavy industrial projects. So some benefits for me was my previous role before being here was pretty focused on healthcare and the commercial side of our industry. So I got to experience some other types of projects, but it was also getting to participate in this with a new lens than I had been on those sites before. I had my lens of being a teacher when I was there. So as I was meeting with tradespeople, meeting with superintendents or project managers, as I'm interacting, I'm constantly thinking back to my students, my past students, my future students. How can I see the skills that they need and knowledge that they need to be ready for these positions? And, you know, certain names come to my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, this person is a great fit for this type of position. And it's just one of those connections that are made sometimes in person. And with that exposure, when you're seeing those great professionals and tradespeople working, but again, through the lens of a teacher versus a direct colleague.
That's great. We did have one question I saw here that was talking about a difficulty getting equipment operators. So someone in the audience specifically called that out. And I thought it would be a great opportunity for us to quickly tell about a program I'm going to tell you, which we just created. And we literally sat in a room and said, okay, people have an operating shortage. So we created a program called Future Operators of Washington. And it was an after-school program. Now, Core Plus is now in the school day, but we created an after-school program where students had to apply for this program, and we brought pizza, and we taught they had to come twice a week for 4 weeks, and they learned what it meant to be an operator. And it also included field trips to see how the bridges and highways are built and what does an operator do, especially in the heavy highway. So that's just an example. What we're saying is that there's lots of things to do. There's no magic to it. It's just figure out where your hole is and try to create a program. But back again to the word strategic, the reason why we use strategy is we had to be able to get into the classroom. We can't just call up and say, hey, we've got this great program for operators. We have to have a relationship, which thankfully Sarah has experience and knows everyone in our state, that she can work with these people and say, hey, we've got this idea. So I just want to throw that out to everybody that's not necessarily in Washington State, that it can be done. So now I've got a question for everyone, and we keep using the word industry-driven. So why is this significant? Who wants to touch on that? We touched on it a little bit, but anyone want to expand on that? Why is it significant that this is industry-driven?
I could go quick because it's something I should have maybe.
Okay.
Go, Jen, go.
Jen. Go, Jen.
Okay. Thanks, Wes. Appreciate it. I was just thinking if there's a follow-up of something I could have shared with the last question, Diane. So another awesome thing about that externship was that I brought all those experiences back, and it was some of the first things I shared with students in the fall were my site photos, talking about the different people I'd met and their roles within a project. That's something that can be really valuable for students, especially with roles and positions that are not as clear for students to visualize. Many of them can visualize perhaps a heavy equipment operator, perhaps a carpenter and electrician. Visualizing what a project manager or a superintendent or a project engineer is difficult for them. It's not something that they have direct exposure. So when I can put a face and a name and a description and some photos to that, it's really valuable.
great. And then was it you, Wes, that wanted to go next?
Well, I just want to kind of answer that, and then also kind of pile on to what Jen said from the administrative perspective of a school. The classes we do at Sno-Isle have to be, they call them preparatory, which means it has to lead directly to industry employment. And so the value of that summer opportunity that Jen had was that she's now getting up to speed with exactly what's happening in the industry right now. And so she can make everything as relevant as possible for that going forward. The other part that I would add to it is that, oh, I totally lost my train of thought. It was right there. Is that we try to make sure that students get the experience with us in our classes, and like Jen said, or somebody said earlier, that some of them may decide that maybe I'm not in the construction trade, that maybe that's not my thing, and that's a good thing to figure out while you're still in high school and going to a public school that doesn't cost any money to figure out, because that's only a bonus to not only our industry but also to our future post-secondary schools, so that we can keep those opportunities for students going forward.
That's great.
I'll jump in real quick, Diane. Hooray and hallelujah to everything you both have said. But as far as we talked about getting our own people in my company engaged and the things it does positively for them, as far as career growth and leadership opportunities. But beyond that engagement with the students from our industry has been huge. They get to hear from the horse's mouth how things actually operate. And we found that we're getting connections with kids, young students, and post-high school young folks that don't really know what they want to do, but they start hearing from our field workers that, hey, I'm making, with overtime, I'm making 6 figures, and I bought a house when I was 25, and I have no student debt, things of that nature. We find those kids that want to go to a second, a university or a 2-year program, but don't know what they want to do. But we're finding those kids kind of like me that, I like to think I had a skill set for this industry, and had somebody grabbed me, I would have been, holy cow, I can actually translate this into a college education and a career down the line. It would have been amazing. So that real-time connection, hearing from the horse's mouth and the real scoop on what the industry has been a big win for our industry here in our area, for sure.
That's great. So we did have a question in the audience, and they wanted to know how what we're doing to attract senior level positions. And I'll give you another example of another program that can easily be replicated, but we have a program that's called Build Your Future. And again, we're working with high schools that have Core Plus construction. Doesn't necessarily mean they're the construction trades teacher, but the school has an interest in the Core Plus construction. But the Build Your Future is really for juniors in high school to be able to attend a program on the campus of University of Washington. So the state of Washington has 3 universities that have construction management. And so these students spend a week on the University of Washington campus and learn about what it means to be obtaining a 4-year degree. So they spend 5 full days with us, and they'll learn about what that means. And as a result of it, they also then learn about our scholarship program. So then if they go into the 3-state university, we also have a very robust scholarship program where we will actually help fund some of their education. So those are some of the other ways that we're doing this. Another person on the question asked, how do we find out which high schools have Core Plus construction? That will be available on the website that you'll be provided from Amy and Carly. Okay, so I think we have a polling question. We have one more polling question, Amy?
We do. We have our 4th polling question, and it's our last one. Do you find it hard to retain good talent? A, yes, B, no, C, sometimes, or D, I don't know. And while you're answering this, just so you know that once you've completed all CPE requirements, you can download a PDF of your certificate right from the CPE progress window in your console. And this one's going pretty quickly, so we'll leave it up for another 5 seconds. Okay, here are the results.
Interesting. That's about what we would expect. So we're going to discuss retention just at the last portion, a little bit more about it, the last portion of our presentation here. But first of all, I wanted to talk to, I think Sarah's going to probably answer this one the best of all of us. So how can our audience members replicate the Core Plus construction program in their state or advance a similar effort?
That's a great question. And I'm imagining that many in our audience are kind of thinking that's a large program, and it is a really large program. And so there's easier places to start that actually have significant impact, and that's by looking at any of your local high schools and finding their advisory board. Every single career technical education program in the nation is required to have a program advisory board, and that's industry professionals who are associated with that program who meet at tops 4 times a year, usually about 2 hours each. So it's 8 total hours of your life, but you make a huge impact on that program, because such as Jen would come to her advisory and ask questions, and you give feedback on, yes, you need this new equipment. No, that's a fad that's passing through. Hey, how can we arrange field trips, and start to build that relationship? The first point of entry I would suggest really is getting involved in the program advisories, because that allows you to build a foundational relationship with your educator and their director as well. And then you can start to talk and build. What do you need? Where can we help? How can we fill in? Instead of just kind of attacking this from maybe the state level, let's design a 4-year comprehensive educational program. That's a large lift. So instead, and this Core Plus didn't happen overnight, it's been years in the making, by including and getting more industry involved in program advisory, so we better understood what was going on in that K-12 system, and they could better understand what was happening in industry. From there, if you're still interested in programs, look to those programs kind of like that Build Your Future, the Future Operators of Washington. You know, slow and steady, incremental building of relationships. Our entire industry is built on relationships. I mean, how many of us have got a job because of somebody we knew, or we worked with them on one job? And that's no different than attracting the students and the next generation. We want to build lasting relationships for them so they can identify and say, that's, you know, Jeff, he's been in my classroom multiple times. I totally want to work with that guy. As opposed to, I don't know, I want to work in construction. I don't know anybody. How am I going to get in? So really, the amount of impact you can have by being on a program advisory is immeasurable. It really is. It makes a tremendous difference and puts you into a player's position of how to affect and improve and help that program along.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear from Wes or Jen, because
Yeah.
they can also give great feedback.
Which one's going to go, Wes or Jen?
I'll interrupt Wes again. I'll jump in first. Yeah, I would just reiterate the same thing you said, Sarah. I think advisory committee is a fantastic way to get engaged, but I would also just encourage you to say you will be well received. I'm speaking on behalf of educators, but they'll be thrilled that you're reaching out and excited to hear from you. So I know that our worlds are a little different, and I shared this with this group before, but to me, this is the exciting part of career tech education, because it's where your local economy and your education department come together. So where one is supporting the other and vice versa. And so it's a pretty exciting place to be, and they'll be excited to hear from you. So don't hesitate. It doesn't mean that you are promising a certain number of hours or financial support of materials. It just means that you're sharing your knowledge and your interest and offering some advice and guidance, and also be ready to hear where the need might be, and hear what the education side of things in your local area is looking for and in need of.
Mind if I jump in real quick, Diane?
I knew you would. That's what we love about you, Jeff.
All right. Well, I think I mentioned this before, and I am a bit of a broken record with it, but engagement is key. And, you know, Sarah noted that this program can be replicated, but it takes time. So what the heck can you do now? And the lessons that we've learned through creating this program, the things we were doing before just to engage, you all can take back to your own local communities. You've got trade organizations, myriad of trade organizations wherever you work that can engage in the manner that Sarah and Jen are talking about, getting with the CTE programs. And every community has a boatload of after-school programs or trade programs that you can engage with as well. And again, it goes back to everything we've said. They're getting the scoop directly from the industry, and that engagement helps us get the message out. Sitting around and talking about it in your office that it's a problem really just acknowledges a problem, but what are you willing to do? And if you take those things and take the lens of engaging your own people, providing them a leadership opportunity, it's a positive for them. We're sending the message to those students and kids and young folks in trade programs by letting them know what's going on and talking. It's important to talk about the diversity of the career, though, not just field, not just office. We have everything that requires to run a business, I have, and we're always looking for those people. And that engagement is huge. And you do not have to have a high school program to make an impact. Get engaged with your community. Multiple ways to do it. Trade organizations, industry organizations, after school programs, and the like. So.
Yeah, I think that's where it's reinforced.
Go ahead, Jen.
Go ahead, Jen.
You're too nice. Give me the floor. Okay, I'm an interrupter. I was just going to reinforce, Jeff, that I think what you said was really key is that, let's say in really simple terms, it's like a 2-for-1, right? I mean, you're kind of helping your own retaining of that PM maybe that you're sending out to go interact with a local high school program, right? So then you're not only are you supporting a current employee who's really vested and interested in having this connection, so they're going to be more invested in you and your company, but you're also sharing their experience with young people that are interested in the industry. Okay, now it's your turn, Wes. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. No, you guys have said all the right things. The only thing I would add is, like, we've gotten so intentional and serious about it at Sno-Isle that I actually hired a position that their job is partnership coordinator. And so when we get those phone calls from the Jeff Tobins of the world, they then guide them to where they need to be. Because a lot of people call us and ask us, like, hey, we want to get involved, we want to find workforce, but they don't exactly know where that fit is within our campus. And so and a lot of other directors for CT programs are doing very similar things. So again, I just would echo, reach out to your local high school, your local skill center, and you're going to find lots of folks that want to talk to you to make a difference.
That's great. And Jeff, didn't you go to the classroom this summer? Touch on that, because that was an interesting, or just this summer you went into a classroom?
I did, and in fact, I'm going back to that classroom tomorrow morning. So I'm on a number of different CTE advisory boards, and with the Renton School District, they have an amazing teacher down there, Creed Nelson, who really gets this program and is really working with his students to send a good message. But he brings in industry professionals to not teach or tell these students anything, but work with them and kind of side by side and open their eyes to all these things that are going on. This summer, Lindbergh High School had a program for a week, and they had every day for that week, they had industry professionals come in to talk about all manner of positions that are available in the industry and the money you can make and the training that you can get and all that kind of good stuff. But out of that, he's created mock projects. And so I'm helping the students now with a civil project, a mock civil project at their high school, where they have a flooding issue where the fix that was submitted to correct their flooding issues actually made it worse. And but anyway, it's a great program, and you know, I could talk about this all day long, and so I love going out there and talking to these students, but they get super engaged. And but the thing that we try to do also, and this is what I would really make sure people consider, a lot of what we're trying to do with these outreach programs is also reaching to our underserved students. People of color, women, which we see a lack of in our industry. So we make an effort to send out people that look like the students, right? You know, our industry is typically a bunch of old white guys like myself, but we have this untapped resource that we're reaching out to, people of color, women, that really have never heard the story. And through these engagements and these programs that the high schools are doing, we have an opportunity to send people that look just like them, and it actually kind of brings down some walls with those students and opens them up, and they get very much more engaged when there's somebody that has a similar story as them. So it's pretty cool. Very cool. And that's
Great point. Okay, so let's move. We've only got a few minutes left, so let's move a little bit to the retention. So we're going to get to hear more from Jeff. But yesterday I had the opportunity to speak with Jane Mounsey, who's the HR director for GLY Construction. And in Washington, GLY Construction is a large commercial contractor. And Jane works with us quite a bit, and she gives us help into understanding what kind of employees are needed and what kind of programs would be beneficial. So she wanted me to share this information about retention from her point of view. And I'm just going to read what she said. And she said that authentic respect for all people in the organization. And she kept repeating authentic, not just respect, but understanding every position and validating them. She said, words matter. Say what you really mean. She also said that she believes the language of pipeline of the workforce should be changed to funnel. And she said that's very important when employees are in the company. We don't talk about a pipeline. She said because a funnel is wide at the top and it's used for guidance. It's not narrow or hard like a pipeline. She also said make it easy to learn about your organization. We've said this before, let your employees be proactive and encourage them to be active in the community and in schools. And cast a wide net that allows people to select in or select out as they learn more. And she said, don't assume how your employees are motivated. She said, for example, invite stay interviews. She says, as opposed to performance interviews. She said, listen to them and find out what motivates them. So what might motivate Sarah in maybe having extra paid time off versus me who may want something else. Listen to what they want and don't assume. So those were words from an HR director here at a major GLY construction company. And Jeff, I'm going to let you tag on to retention because I know you've got a lot to say on that too.
Yeah, I think so. Our head of human resources, Agc Gaffney, has really taken and tuned up an old internship program that we had and really made it amazing for us. That internal training program, for the internships, she's engaging with UW, Washington State, Central Washington, Montana State, and has got herself engaged with their program leads there to identify kids coming through programs that we can grab through training programs. And part of that program, we set up mentors with our existing PEs and project managers. So we have those young folks that are in school coming in and providing our own team a leadership opportunity to engage with those up and coming professionals in our industry. That's a fantastic way to go about it. She says a lot of the same things that Jane Mounsey was talking about, but it's really, the listening thing is really important, and especially in our industry. In construction, it's evolving, right? It's no longer just the head down grinding and do your job and shut up. And it's evolved so much that what she really tries to do is identify and capitalize on individual skill sets that we have for our people inside our own company, and finding opportunities to engage them to really exploit the skill set they have, whether that be project opportunities, speaking opportunities, mentorship engagement, things of that nature. So she really takes an approach where we're going to get a hold of the young kids in school, train them in our, give them all our bad habits and see if they can work it, and then hire them. But beyond that, taking that same initiative and allowing our own teammates to mentor and coach those kids. And it's really, it's just kind of more of a grassroots local effort, much like our engagement out in the school. But that leadership piece is huge. Want me to keep on rolling here?
You just fire away, you're on it. Does anyone else want to add on the panel? Or now would be a good time if anyone has retention questions for the question and answer box too.
I don't want to, I like listening to Jeff, but Jeff, can I throw one thing into you?
Absolutely, man.
That I wanted to see from your perspective, what I hear a lot of times when I talk to folks now is that the student, the 16 to 24-year-old, is not your typical 16 to 24-year-old that we had 20 years ago when you and I were in high school, 30 years ago when you and I were in high school. Like they're not driven by how much money can I make and how fast can I move up the chain. They're looking at a whole different skill set. They're a little more altruistic. They're a little more like, what's the result of what I'm doing? How much flexibility can I have in my work world so that I can travel and go do and see things, like Diane said, paid time off. They're interested in a lot of those other things that weren't really what was driving the high school, college age kiddo from 15, 20 years ago. And so having that kind of different slant from what we're doing in the educational piece and from what the hiring managers are doing, is really key, because it's meeting the needs of the students that we currently have, or the graduates that we currently have. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, from your perspective, Jeff, is it the same thing? Is you're seeing a different type of folk come out of the high school, college world?
Absolutely. I think absolutely. It's certainly growing up with social media and a computer at your thumbs, it generates a different kind of student, right? So they're a little more savvy. I'll say it this way: a hell of a lot more savvy than I was coming out of high school. And the opportunities they have now vary greatly from what we had when we were in school. So I think they are coming out a little more tuned up to what the world looks like than I certainly was. And they ask a whole heck of a lot more questions than I ever did. But they're very engaging questions. So 100% what you said is accurate.
Yeah. So the other nice part I put in there. Oh.
No, go, man.
Go ahead.
No, okay. Well, one of the things that we do really commonly in all of our programs, like Jen said, she's a one-woman show in construction trades, but the one thing that's common in all of our classes is professionalism and having professionalism standards. And that kind of stuff is so important to teach, especially 16 to 18-year-olds. But I think it dovetails nicely with what you're talking about, Jeff.
Yeah. One more thing that I'd maybe end with, if I could, Diane. So our HR manager, Annika, also talks a lot about kind of the doers and the soldiers, right? The people that want to do more and the ones that want to just grind and do their thing, and notes that they're both important and you cannot neglect them. And I think Diane said this earlier, but it's genuine engagement, right? It's really cool to be a leader of a company, but it really stinks when nobody wants to work with you because you don't pay attention to them, you're not engaged, and you do not listen to their wants, needs, and desires. It doesn't mean that we can accommodate everything, but that active engagement is incredibly important. Kind of along the same lines of these stay interviews, our HR manager created a quarterly check-in system. So traditionally, I think a lot of companies do a year-end review, and there might be conversations along the year, but you come into that year-end review and kind of vomit out the whole year and how it went. What she's done is chopped it up into quarters to, I don't want to say force, but very deliberately create these engagement points throughout the year to make sure we're setting goals, checking on those goals, and it really takes the place of this kind of stay interview by these quarterly check-ins to make sure, if I'm working with Jen, that she's getting what she needs, she's feeling engaged, she's feeling supported, all those things. But one of the things that really positive things that comes from that is we learn a lot more about what our company feels like from our teammates just through those conversations, and it provides us a lot of insight on what we might need to tune up or how we might want to change our training programs or educational opportunities. So I guess in a punchline, genuine and honest engagement with your teammates is hugely important.
That's great. Well, thank you, everyone. We've reached the end of our time here. We did have one question, but I think it would take us a whole nother hour to tackle, and that would be hybrid. Retention using with the hybrid now that a lot of people want to work remote. So maybe that's a whole nother topic, because I don't think we can touch that in 30 seconds. So panelists, thank you very much. It's always fun to chat with you, and appreciate your time and your wisdom. And Amy, I'm going to turn it back over for you.
All right. Thank you, Diane. And thank you all of our panelists for a really great discussion today. And I also want to thank the audience for being engaged and submitting your questions to help guide the conversation. And then if you met all CPE requirements, your certificate is available to download now in the CPE progress window. A copy will be emailed within 3 weeks should you have difficulty downloading it now. And finally, here is a link to an online survey for today's presentation. Please take a moment to complete this survey as your feedback is very important to us. And thank you for joining our webcast. We hope you'll join us again next time. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.